Welcome to Sky Team's People First with Morag Barrett. Here, we'll be exploring the people side of successful businesses, careers, and lives. We all have a story to share, and there's something to be learned in every story. Join us to learn from authors, business leaders, thought leaders, and people just like you to uncover the latest ideas, resources, and tools to help you become more effective at work and life. As it turns out, the secret to success is cultivating winning relationships. Business is personal and relationships matter.
Welcome to this week's episode of People First, and my guest this week is my friend and colleague Kristin Stapleton from Amplify 3X, who works with leaders and organisations to unlock the force multiplier effect of leadership. More on that in just a moment. But this is where clarity, trust and accountability don't just improve individual performance, it exponentially increases the impact of the entire system. And who wouldn't want a little bit of that? For the last 13 years, Kristen has worked with thousands of leaders across Fortune 1000 companies, employee-owned businesses and private equity firms. She challenges teams to think differently about leadership leverage, how the choices we make, the behaviours we model and the standards we set can either dilute momentum or multiply it across teams, culture and results. Her systemic approach to organisational transformation accelerates business growth while unlocking the best in people. And you know what? She is just all round good fun and a ball of energy. And I am so looking forward to this conversation. Kristen, welcome.
Oh, welcome. Yes, thank you for that great introduction. It's great to be with you.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, before we dive into the multiplier effect and learn more about the work, I'm curious, as you know, I'm passionate all about workplace relationships. So I'm curious, what role have relationships played for you in your success?
I mean, relationships are really all of it, right? I mean, none of us do this alone, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I had to learn that the hard way from a very competitive, go-getter, I can do this with that armor on, to really failing in that way. Taught me a lot about how we can and need to lean on each other. So relationships for me have really accelerated my performance and been so much more enjoyable to do work that way.
It's funny listening to that. I was thinking we could be twins, because I've shared on many of these episodes how early in my career I valued independence over interdependence, mistaking my ability to just get stuff done through my own efforts as success. But as you and I know, especially on teams, it's not about what can I do, it's what can we do together that we can't do individually. Which brings us nicely to the multiplication effect in leadership. So what the heck is it?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, the multiplication effect is really exactly what we're talking about. It's what you're able to do when you combine your strengths with other people's strengths on the team, and you're brave enough to say, I don't know how to do this, right? Like when you're brave enough to say, this person's better at this task and I need them and we need each other. And when we are able to do that and go first, then we teach others how to do that as well.
Oh, I can just imagine there are a lot of people listening to this, a lot of leaders who are wincing, going, yes, but if I go first, they're going to use that against me. So you know what? I'm going to stay stuck. So what's the biggest barrier to us working and leading in a multiplier way?
Morag, thank you for that. I mean, the biggest barrier that I've lived myself is our own ego. Our ego, ego is a great thing, right? It can be our friend, but when it steps in and takes over, that's when we stop asking, what do I not know and what can I learn in this situation? And so I really think that our own egos, and I say that because I've lived it, because that was me. When we can learn that that's just that's just a personality and I can put that to the side, then we start to gain a whole new perspective on what it means to multiply together.
So, what was the catalyst then that brought you to your senses and made you realize that you were leading from an ego perspective or whatever it was, but then made you pivot to the framework we're going to explore, care, but also this multiplier effect?
Sure. I mean, really, Morag, it was failure. I can remember early in my career really thinking and that my ego was, is taking care of me. And I really thought I was next up for that executive position. And frankly, I thought it was mine. I didn't really see it as any other option because, I had done everything well and the table was laid and that was going to be my position. And you know what? I fell flat. And a colleague who I did respect, but ended up getting that position. And it was while it was difficult and it caused me to make some pivots in my own career, it was what I needed. I needed to fall on my face to be able to face what I had created. And I guess if I can do anything from leaders, it's to try to help learn through my own failures. Um, Even though I know sometimes we have to do it wrong to get it right. And so I had to fall down and I had to eat crow, if you will. And that's the only way that I was able to see that I was the person in my own way.
I can almost feel the knot in my stomach though, because that whole in looking inward at our culpable negligence, what has helped or got in the way of success or got in the way and contributed to this failure, that does take courage and vulnerability in spades
Mhm.
to be able to do it. And so creating an environment where leaders are willing to do that, not just in private through the executive coaching you do, but in a team environment, that takes some magic. So what have you learned about yourself as you have brought these concepts to teams?
I've learned that there's always more to learn. I guess like every time we take a step in growth, there's more. So as soon as we think we've made it, we
Mm.
likely just saw another side, and while that was scary early on, what I've learned through this process is there's so much more potential when you take that brave next step. And even though it feels yucky at the time, when you experience the multiplication effect that it has, not just on yourself, but on other people, it becomes its own motivator in itself, right? So now
Mhm.
I know that what feels most uncomfortable is exactly where we need to go.
All right, then. So we've used the word multiply, multiplier, multiplication a number of times in the introduction. Let's just summarize and again what you mean by that. And then let's talk about how do we do it?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the multiplication effect is really comes from what the power that we have to create an environment that is quite different from what we have known before. It is removing our ego from the equation. It's learning to understand where others are coming from. It's learning that I don't have to be the best at all of these things. And in fact, when we combine our own potential, our greatest potential accelerates. And so it's been through my own learning of knowing how far what I could do on my own, and then combining with colleagues to see how much further your growth actually happens. And I can say, and in coaching thousands of leaders, that that's the experience that they have too, is that while we think we're protecting ourselves by not asking for help, by going it alone, by protecting ourselves, the problem with that is we never reach our fullest potential. And when we let go, when we take a chance on asking others to combine with us, to share, to learn from them, that's when we realize just how far we can go.
Okay, so how do we get there?
Yes, and I'm so glad that you asked this because this will be a fun experience with you. The CARE framework came through a very pivotal experience for me. So I was headed home from a client project actually out in New Jersey, and I was flying home, and it was a difficult experience. And I had had a rough run with this project, and I flew home. I got home about midnight. I walked through the airport. I ended up leaving my cell phone in a bathroom down by the terminal. You know how this goes. You're
Yeah.
exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I walked all the way through the airport. I got to my car, realized I didn't have my cell phone, backtracked my steps, and that landed me in front of the customer service desk at the Indianapolis International Airport. And Morag, what happened in the next 35 minutes, it crystallized the CARE framework for me. Because what happened was I ended up meeting 3 individuals that work for the Indianapolis International Airport. And what I learned is that the care that they have for one another completely transformed that culture there. That organization has not only won multiple awards, it's been rated as the #1 airport in North America, multiple years going. And I can tell you that the reason it is because of the relationships that they've established. Over the course of 35 minutes, they shared with me how they know each other beyond the workplace, how that connection to one another gets more done on a daily basis. When I looked at them with tears in my eyes, the woman said to me, "I got you. My friends, my colleagues are down on the other end, and we're going to make this right."
Oh my God, you're speaking my language because it's that care connection. And when we're launching programs, I'm launching a leadership academy for a major sports franchise with a colleague, Michelle Johnston. And we start with connection before content. You have to know the humans, not just the job title and who's in the room and the statuses in the room, but who are the humans in the room. And that doesn't mean we have to share everything, but we can share a little more about our life journey and what excites us and what frustrates us and what we did for the weekend for fun. And that's where you use those words, my friends at work from the Indianapolis airport. We've got you. And when we have friends at work, it makes the good days brighter, but it also makes the tough days easier to navigate because I know you care. So C then, I'm guessing, stands for connection.
Connection, 100%. Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
after you.
I knew when they approached me with, "We got you," it's because they have each other. The connection was evident. It was not just these individuals, it was the ones they called on that were working down in the trenches, the ones that came up from, the basement to help with, find it, because I couldn't get back there. I was beyond the security. Their experience together was so evident that it was because of the way they treated each other is the reason they could treat me different as the customer.
Okay. So C for connection,
C
for
A for accountability. And accountability is important because it's very easy to look around an organization and point out what's not being done. It's very easy for sales to say, "Well, we sold it, but ops can't get it done." It's very easy for product development to say, "Well, we could do more if only this team, was pulling their weight." That's the easy way, but that's not how momentum is built. And so just like we talked about early on, it takes us going first to really say, "I'm going to do my part. I'm going to hold up my end of this and be accountable to myself first in order to start that momentum of that multiplication.
Okay, so accountability, not pointing the finger, starting with me, but being clear about what the target and the goals are. So, what's
Correct.
the R of care then?
So R is about respecting alternative viewpoints. So, one of the things we know, in teaching leaders, and you do this as well, is we come to the table with one perspective. I'm N equals one, which means that's one way of doing it. But if we can open up that conversation, we bring in all kinds of different ways of looking at that. And the reason that's important is because we have people throughout the organization, and the closer they are to the customer, the more perspective they have. So when we respect alternative viewpoints and open up to what our colleagues are saying, we get different ways of approaching old problems.
It's interesting when we're talking with teams, we'll talk about their experience of high performing teams and what differentiates meh from great.
Mhm.
And often it's the do we have fun, the relationships, but it's the learning piece, which is what
Mhm.
I'm hearing here. It's not just seeking out other perspectives before we move to action. It's also understanding who's not in the room that we need to bring into the room, but also whether or not the outcome is a success or a miss, reflecting on how do we learn and grow together so
Mhm.
that next time we are either better prepared or better informed.
Mhm. Yeah, and it takes that openness and
Mm-hmm.
curiosity to begin to ask those questions.
And courage and vulnerability again, because I know when I was first promoted to a manager and then lead senior leadership, it's that, well, I've been promoted, I'm supposed to know all the answers. And being able to say, I don't know, or maybe Kristen's better in positioned to know or have a different perspective, that can feel like losing control. But leadership to me is not about control. It's creating the container, the environment in which everybody can take informed risk. And that's
Mm.
what drives innovation, creativity, collaboration, all the things that our clients are saying that they want. But because they're building straitjackets, either in
Mm.
their mind of what is required or in their systems and processes, they never get to unlock, going all the way back to what you said, the multiplier effect and the multiplication that's potentially there if we can be better together. Oh my
Yes,
God, I love
yes.
how our work is all kind of interlocked and aligned.
It is, it is.
Okay,
And yeah,
go on. What were you going to
I'm
add?
curious, Morag. So one of the, methods we use to help clients get there is really around understanding themselves. So one thing that we've seen is when individuals have a great sense of like where their own unique brilliance is, they're more easily able to spot brilliance in other people. So it really starts
Mm,
with having a true understanding of like, where do I show up as my best self and what value do I bring? Like, am I secure in that? And the leaders who are most secure in their own strengths are the ones who are more easily able to spot it in other people as well. So it really is an inside out approach.
is that a subtle transition into what the E is?
Potentially, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's
Oh,
amazing how it all builds. So come
it
on then,
does.
tell us what's
So
the E of care?
the E is about empowering others to succeed. And this is where the juice is, right? This is when leaders really take a chance at elevating someone else, at elevating a colleague, and they see just how much further the team can go. And once you experience that, it's contagious, right? I think I saw a post of yours, Morag, today that said something about we have to be brave enough to go first because when we lock down, when we say I'm going to get mine,
Mm-hmm.
we create more of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
have a choice. We can also give. And the more generous we are with that, the more we push the flywheel of generosity. And that generosity is what opens up new opportunity for innovation, for new thinking, for different ways of exploring what if, because this world is far different than any of us grew up in. And so if we're not thinking about what's next, we're likely behind.
So, care. Do us a
Sure.
quick 30-second summary of the 4 steps. And then my question is, for people who are listening and watching this episode, how do they identify what their grounded strength and when they're at their best? So,
Yeah,
summary,
great.
and then what's our first step?
Sure. Yeah. Cares for C is the connection, right? So it always starts with connection, understanding who our teammates are and what's really important to them. This is well beyond the workplace, right? Like what's most important to them. If we can know that, that's where great teams really unlock, is they anticipate needs before they're spoken.
Mm-hmm.
The A is for accountability. It's easy to point fingers. That's the easy route. It's what happens when we say, this is going to stop with me because I'm going to show up for what I can contribute to this team. That creates a different kind of environment. The R is for respect. Respecting where our teammates come from. What are what are they bringing to me? What do they see in the business that I don't see? This is our opportunity to learn. And E is about empowering others to succeed. That's when we really create momentum. When we see leaders reach across the aisle and say, that, more of that, that is exactly what we want. That's when you have peers pointing out other peers for their greatness. That's when you know it's working.
Peers pointing out peers for their greatness. Oh, gives me goosebumps. All right, then. So, again, for people listening, what's the first step? How do I find out my own magic and what can I do to bring this alive?
So I use, something that might help. I use 3 simple questions to kind of just help people get into this space. So number 1, think about yourself. Let's imagine it's Saturday morning or any non-work day, right? Where you don't have anything you have to do. No kids'
Mm-hmm.
activities or specific chores that have to be done. Where do you find yourself spending time?
I presume lounging in bed or on the sofa is not what you're necessarily going for.
Even if you're doing that, I want to know more about that. So we tend to, where you're spending time, whether it's what you're reading, what you're doing, what you're planning, that's insight, right? That's insight to what's most important to us, and what really fills us up. Question 2, where do you find that what are you doing when you're providing the highest value to the team? What are the tasks? What are the projects when you are providing your highest value to the team? Take inventory of that. And step 3 is to ask a peer, or as I say, if you're brave enough, ask your spouse, where have you
Mm-hmm.
seen me at my very best? And then ask them to provide you a specific example. Because it's only when we really understand where our true gifts are that we can more easily spot it in others.
And it's interesting that you talk about reflecting on when do I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders and what am I doing? But that outside in of when do others perceive that I'm adding value, you can identify whether or not there's a gap. Because sometimes the things I know to my own, I'm fabulous at generating ideas and thoughts. My team will tell you when they're being polite that it is an overplayed strength, i.e., it's a bloody nightmare because it's like bing, 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 and knowing when to stop. But
Mhm.
unless you actually ask for that outside in, if I'm of the mindset that my strength is ideas and the rush to action, I'm actually creating more chaos and confusion than I am delivering a new direction and target for the team to hit.
Mhm. You're exactly right. We tend to be very awkward, bad judges of our own performance. So it's important to gather outside information. Our peers are one source, but I've found some of the hardest feedback is directly from those who love you the most. But that
Mm,
insight provides a runway.
okay. So if a team is curious to learn more about how to do this,
Hmm.
we've talked about the first three questions to ask. I mean,
Hmm.
what's the work that lights you up?
Oh, the work that lights me up is team coaching, helping individuals really talk through what is possible for them and explore like the next layer. I find that teams get stuck in the mundane, the everyday, the problems that are directly in front of us. But if we're always doing that, we're not preparing for the next layer of growth, which is really what Amplify is about, is really setting up teams to grow at an exponential rate using the multiplication effect.
Sounds like this is going to take a lot of time.
Well, that's a great question. In the clients that I help, we run a 12-week program. So, start to finish, 12 weeks is where we can really see progression for teams that accelerate their outcomes, accelerate their performance.
So 12 weeks of getting together in person, can it happen? Because so many of us are now working through the camera or a little bit of
Yeah,
both. How
right,
does this work? Do
exactly.
we
So
have to get in?
we use a hybrid approach, right? So there's some online asynchronous learning, there are weekly coaching calls, and then there's an experiential project because the goal here is to push the business forward. This isn't a plus one. This is an integrated approach into what teams are already working toward. It just accelerates their performance.
So how, well, I'm curious now, because again, at Sky Team, I know we are amazing at helping our clients,
Hmm.
new mindset, new approaches, delivering outstanding results. But in that rush to help everybody else, sometimes we can neglect to take our own advice.
Mm,
So,
mm.
what are you working on right now that's helping you to multiply the effect that you and your team are having?
You know what? I have to go back to the foundation. And for me, that is all around, I simplify, it's all around taking care of yourself. So, three core components: food, movement, sleep. Keep it simple, right? But I know for sure if I'm not getting those things for myself, right? If I'm not fueling my body, if I'm not getting the water, if I'm not getting the sleep, I can't ever be who I need to be for someone else. So I take it back to the foundation. It really centers around my own well-being. And what I've found is that leaders can do more, be more, and give more when they're first invested in the core components of taking care of themselves. So, as hard as it is, and these are habits that we have to come back to, it's all about really channeling like our own well being and taking care of ourselves.
Cool. So, where can people learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I'd love that. Individuals can connect with me on LinkedIn is where I'm most active, and then YouTube as well, getting started with video content. I know, we're both working in that direction, and I'm having fun with it. And I'd love to have some interaction and have individuals ask questions because, again, we don't do it alone. Right. I encourage people to come and join me and have some dialogue back and forth. So both
Okay.
LinkedIn and YouTube, you can find me, Kristin Stapleton, Amplify 3X. That's a number three and a letter X.
And I'll make sure all of that information is in the show notes below. But Kristen, thank you for sharing a little glimpse of the work and the impact that you're having. I applaud the care framework. I think it is intuitive, easy to grasp, but obviously also subtly challenging to do. But what
Mm.
you do is help those leaders and teams to apply it consistently and start to pick up that momentum and multiplication effect. Please do, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure that you hit the little bell, subscribe, do whatever you need to do to make sure that those algorithm gods continue to bring us all together, because I promise we're all worth it. And make sure to follow up on Kristen's information below. But Kristen, in the meantime, thank you for joining me here on People First.
Thanks, Morag.
Thank you so much for joining Morag today. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. If you learned something worth sharing, share it. Cultivate your relationships today when you don't need anything before you need something. Be sure to follow Sky Team and Morag on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you have any ideas about topics we should tackle, interviews we should do, or if you yourself would like to be on the show, drop us a line at info@skyteam.com. That's SKYE team.com. Thanks again for joining us today, and remember, business is personal and relationships matter. We are your allies.